Okay, folks, this is part 3 of my discussion on the new medicine put out in 2014 and recommended called prophylactis or PrEP for AIDS patients. In part 1, I went through some of the math on varying different things and how they would work together. On part 2, I showed the downside of this prophylactis. But in this one, I'm going to show a potential upside. In this part 3, we're going to consider that the CDC considered the 1 in 900 and that the 1 in 10 is actually 1 in 10 of the 1 in 900. Now let's look at what that would mean. What if that's what their testing actually indicated and not what I said in part 2? Now, you'll have to check with CDC to see how they figured that in there. But let's get in the shadow of a doubt and say that they really did test it and they indeed included the 1 in 900 figure. And that what they're saying is, from the rough estimate of how many they had anticipated on having, which would be the 1 in 900, we'll call it 1 in 1,000, that they actually had more like 1 in 10,000. Now, if that's the case, these prophylactics are some good stuff. But again, the CDC didn't release any information that I know of to support their claim of whether or not they included a particular number of people that were expected of the percentage, as a percentage of the population to catch the virus versus the number with the prophylactis that wouldn't catch the virus. Now, knowing they didn't release that information, I can't make a direct statement saying, hey, you shouldn't take this medicine. I wouldn't take it from just what's on the CDC site. But putting a little information together, and if I say they were using average statistics, which would be the same as the Zimbabwe study was, which is the 1 in 900, then they're saying that's 1/10 of the 1 in 900. Well, what's 1/10 of that? 1 in 9,000. So think about it. That's another twist to the story. The question needs to be solved by CDC as to what actual information they need to put on their site. Because from what they got on their site, what I put in part 2 is correct. But thinking about what might be possible, even though it's not on CDC site, could they have included that information and not listed it on the site? If that's the case, then we're talking about this prophylactis is not 90% effective. It's 1 in 9,000 of a chance you would catch the virus. Now, that being said, remember, the Zimbabwe study said 1 in 900 sexual acts transmit the virus between a unprotected person and an unprotected person without medication, just having sex, one having the disease, the other not. Now, if the CDC, for whatever reason, didn't bother to include that information in their site, so I didn't get to see it. If they didn't include that information on the site, but they used it to calculate that 90% effective rate, then we're talking about 1 in 9,000. That means you're talking about being able to have 8,999 sexual acts just to transmit the disease. But the information on the CDC website doesn't give that type of detail. But it is a possible solution set if that detail was just simply omitted and should have been there. I just thought that I should say that as a caveat to number 2, part 2 of this, what was it called? Hive AIDS, CDC, New Med. I think is what I called it. Think about it. If they just simply accidentally omitted that fact that AIDS normally spreads 1 in 900 sexual acts, and they're now saying this medicine reduces the chances of catching the virus by 90%, well, normally you would think, well, that doesn't mesh. Unless they failed to mention that 1 in 900, and they meant to mention it, or should have mentioned it. Maybe that's why. Maybe they should have said it. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, but they didn't. They should have said that if they meant to use that information. Instead, they put out a figure out there that can be completely debased without that supporting evidence. And it makes a huge difference in the likelihood of catching the disease. You're out there and you're looking like, well, this is going to cause me to catch the disease 1 in every 10 times. But if they're basing it off of that other's estimate, we could be talking about 1 in 9,000 times. CDC, you need to find out what information needs to go on your site to support these statements you're making. Because there is a huge difference between 1 in 10 and 1 in 9,000. And I can figure it on either direction from the information you have on your site, based on studies that are available out there. You need to come in there and tell us which one is the correct one to use. Because if you come in with the 1 in 9,000, you could see AIDS rates drop through the bottom as far as infection rates if people are on this medicine. But if that's not the case, then it's actually more dangerous than not having the medicine. CDC, you got to get the ball. You got to get on the ball here. You got to figure out which one of my statements is correct. I don't have the actual raw figures to work with. You do. Put the raw figure one way or the other on the site to show which direction you're talking about. Well, Thomas Willis out here. Have a good one.